you'll notice how close we are here, all four of us. You know, well, you think that we're really brave sorts, and you don't think, I'm not scared of snakes, but I do have a certain respect for the poisonous ones, because I have used it before, and it's no fun. This boy right here is pretty close to us, but if you'll notice, we're not that brave, because we all have on snake boots, which is a necessity going down on Bluff. Now, we got them to burn this off in March of 2018. Went back several days in terrible heat and humidity down there at the end of April. And this is what it looks like burned off. So we recovered a lot more artifacts. You can see behind there how high that is. It didn't burn that far back. But this is the part of the battlefield. This is part of where the British were actually. And you can see Mike Yiannopoulos here with 1, 2, 3 flags. 1, 2, 3 flags, the bags. So he's pulling stuff up, bagging it. We GPS it later. And he is looking right now, again, right between the British and between Gist's lines and Brereton's lines, Major Brereton's lines. So we did recover a whole lot of artifacts. I think a lot of artifacts based on the length of time we were down there and the terrain. And this next gentleman is Dave Shutram. He's retired. He's on the crew also. He's a retired federal meteorologist, and he has just found an iron canister shot, just dug it up. Now, archaeologists like to talk about things being in situ. I don't know if you all know what that means, but it just means in its natural state. But I think it makes archaeologists, forgive me if there's an archaeologist here, I'm going to get brief about this. I think it makes archaeologists seem smart because it's just like they understand Latin. So things have to be, they always want pictures of things in situ. So this is a 75 caliber British musket ball drop from a round best musket in situ, folks, in situ. Now, what did we find? We've got to put it on a map. This is a Google map, and these are all the artifacts that we found. And the yellow is artillery shot. The red are British musket balls shot and fired, and the blue are Charleville or Continental musket balls shot and fired. Now this is weird, because when I looked at this, I'm accustomed to seeing a line and a line, or a line and a line. This is all mixed up. This doesn't make any sense to me. So let's look at only the unfired balls. Where we find unfired shot means that somebody stood there and they dropped it, because they dropped a lot of shot when they were loading. So these are unfired shot. It still doesn't make any sense to me, because I've got the blue as French musket or continental shot, and the red here, the red as brown bess or British shot. So I've got British shot and continental shot mixed together here. Well, Brereton had 2 regular regiments of British and 1 provincial regiment of British, likely mostly armed, as best I can tell, mostly armed with brown bess muskets. The 300 Continentals were there with Gist. And also, Lawrence had a company of Continentals. They would have been armed with 69 caliber Charlevilles. So this is not making any sense to me. I mean, why do we have dropped British and Patriot shot right there together? What did they do? Did they find a keg of rum and crack it open and have a party in the middle of this thing? I don't know what this is doing here. So let's look at the fired shot. It's just as confusing. Look at all this British shots fired. Put this British shot up here. But then you've got some shot down here that is Charleville shot, which is Patriot. This is really confusing, especially all this in here. And we can tell the size. You can see the size of the shot over here. I've got it listed. I've got it all numbered. We can tell where this comes from. So looking at that, I can't make heads or tails of it. This is a little bit more helpful because this is a scatter of artillery shot. This is iron canister shot. Now, it is. If it were a cannon here, this spray out here would be huge. But see how compacted that is? So they're fairly close together. And also, this is about 500 yards, or 450, 500 yards. And the odds of having that howitzer firing further than that, it would be a wider scatter than this tight scatter. We know that the British, Brereton writes to Leslie that he was able to use the captured 5.5-ounce howitzer. We do not know, there's no evidence, written evidence that I can find or we can find that Gist, Mordecai Gist, General Gist, was able to use one of the artillery pieces he had with him. This sure looks like to me, there's one fire this way and there's one fire that way. So it kind of gives us an angle, but still, It doesn't make any sense. Because we have a scatter of the artillery, but all this other stuff is all jumbled up. So you go back and you look at the 10-line maps. And you look at the first attack where Lawrence was killed, where you can't see this very well, but this is the Patriots, and then down here around the Patriots are the British. And then the second attack, you've got the British off to the east and the Patriots off to the west. A little bit of an angle, but right in there. But our artillery shot seems to be going this way. So this doesn't make any sense, does it? So what happened here? Oops. So what happened here? Well, I sent it to Charles and he looked at it and he said, this doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. Oops, go back. This map doesn't make any sense. Did 10 line just make this up? We don't even know who 10 line is. I showed it to Jim Letty and Steve Smith at the Institute. They said, I can't make heads or tails of it. Then I was playing with it about 10 days after I got all the plots done. I was playing with it. Suddenly, it was an aha moment. You need an aha moment when you do battlefield archaeology because you've got to get lucky somewhere and a light bulb has to go off. And the light bulb went off because I was playing with these things and turning them. And if you take these two 10-line maps and if you turn them 90 degrees to the right, they look like this. And then, if you look at Lawrence, it's in this direction, Patriots and British. And if you look at Gist and Brereton, Gist is here, Brereton's there. Here's your artillery shot. This will make more sense in just a second, but this is all messed up. These things are all in the wrong place. But he does have the positions of these troops. He does draw them correctly. So what I did is I took the positions of the troops exactly like they are, same size. I didn't resize them. I had a graphics artist as part of our crew, Brian Tate, up in Greenville, South Carolina, did this. I took these and I turned them so that they would fit on the maps that I'd done for the fired shot and the artillery. And this is what they look like. For the fired shot, this is where Lawrence was killed, right here. You see this? That's where Lawrence was killed. This is the first attack right here. And there's more stuff over here where we haven't even looked yet. But this is where Lawrence was killed. Now, there is one secondary source that I found that says that Gist was within 2 miles of this battle or this action when Lawrence was killed, and he was almost to Lawrence before Lawrence got killed. If he had gotten there in time, Lawrence would have joined him, but Lawrence is not going to wait. As Charles said, incredibly brash and impetuous. I mean, even Green writes, he's so saddened by Lawrence's death, but he was always something to the effect very brash and very forward. And he was. So he's not going to wait. He wants the glory. Well, it ended up costing him his life. But this is the first attack. And then when I overlay just the troop positions only, nothing else, on these fired shot, this is Gist, and this is Brereton right here, 64, 84, and 17, 84 being provincials. Well, actually got some provincials back there too. And then the rebel cavalry over here. This is exactly the way 10 line draws it. So you've got the Patriot line here and the British line here with almost nothing in the middle. There's one rifle ball right there, which I don't have plotted. Almost nothing in the middle. And it looks like this, and it looks like, especially with these up here, it looks like this. It fits. It fits really well. Not perfectly, but well enough for me to say we have two battles, which is what we were looking for, 2 actions, and they're on the same spot. They happened on the same property. And Gist got there, I think, just a few minutes, less than 15 or 20 minutes, after Lawrence was killed, because the British were still on the same ground. And all they did was turn, and Gist came down and formed, and they had a little bit of a fight back and forth. They danced a little bit of a minuet, fired a little bit of artillery at each other, and then that was it. Because they really weren't interested at this point in exposing themselves or their men, because, again, in 3 months, and this was already known, in 3 months by the British, in 3 months, Brereton and his men were taken off to the Caribbean, and Green was going to be dismissing his men because this war was going to be over in the South. So there's no reason to get into some huge fight here, as Lawrence was trying to do. Looking at it from this standpoint, remember the artillery with the at the artillery when we look at the second action, but he didn't use artillery. We know the howitzer was fired, bam. We don't know that Gist fired his cannon, bam. Yes, he did. He did fire his cannon. So this fits. Now, problem solved. It all happened on the same ground. There were two different fights on the same place. And that's the conclusion we've come to. And I will stand by that until we do more work down there and try to find maybe some additional artifacts that will dispute what I'm telling you. But I think that is the case. Same ground, two fights. We did find it. Now, I've got some good news and I've got some bad news. Okay, I'm going to give you the bad news first. Normally I have pictures of artifacts, which are really, a lot of people like to look at artifacts. And they're pictures of artifacts that I just go through real quickly and show you different types of coins we found and bayonets and all this kind of stuff that we found down there. And it's really neat, except that I've not had time to get Drew Ruddy, who's in the back of the room, who is also a wonderful marine archaeologist, by the way, the best in the state. He does the photography for some of this stuff, and he's helped me a lot with photography from Schubert's. And he's offered to photograph this collection that we've accumulated so far, but I've not had a chance to do it. So the bad news is I don't have any pictures of artifacts. I'm sorry. The good news is I brought the artifacts with me. They're in the back of the room. And you're welcome to play with them, pick them up. You can take them out of the bag. When you see one that's been shot, you know it was shot by a musket from one side or the other. Mike Baxter's back there, and he can explain to you a lot of what all that means, and I'll be back there too. I do ask one thing. There's a bayonet back there. Very rare to find a bayonet on a battlefield, almost never. And Mike Yiannopoulos did find this one stuck in the ground. We took it out, and it is over there. And please look at it, but don't touch it, because it's just a little fragile. It's still all together, but you'll see it. It's kind of fragile. And I think these property owners would probably hang me if I took them back a bayonet in two pieces rather than one. So we don't want to play with the bayonet, but certainly look at it. That bayonet came off of a British carbine, not a British brown vest, but a British light carbine. Because of the length of the socket and the length of the blade, it is a perfect match to a British carbine. And these troops that were with Brereton would have been light troops, flanking troops. That we know that's what he had. Some of them would carry fusils and carbines, as opposed to just having all infantry muskets. So, Charles, come back up. I'm finished. So please, question. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I've seen differing accounts on how Lawrence was killed. One is that he saw the enemy, he engaged them, took his men straight into it. The other is that he was completely surprised and ambushed. Does your work shed any light on one versus the other?
None at all so far. But it sure looks like the way that 10 lines set those lines up, that there was no ambush there. It looks like to me that the British came up through those sloughs, formed Lawrence, and charged them and toppled him. There's also a couple of accounts. There's one primary account that says there was one volley by the British and then he charged him. So I think that he was really full of bravado, and maybe he's still full of rum from the night before partying in the stocks. He made a huge mistake here and cost him his life.
I don't think there's an ambush there. I've seen that written. No evidence of it in the primary sources that I see. I think John's absolutely right. The British lined up, the Americans lined up, and John Lawrence said the only words he knows how to say. Charge.
So he really did have the ambush.
His friends all wrote that he did. Not a death wish, a wish for glory.
Including Washington. Yes, sir.
Can you say this was the last action before the end of the war, or what?
Well, it was the last one of many major import. I mean, there were skirmishes at a lot of different places. Was Fraser after this?
It's the 2 days later.
2 days later.
There's some in the Charleston area, late in November and early December. Once again, it's just where the British are getting firewood, getting food, stealing cows, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, this was really the last. If you even call this a major engagement, I mean, you're only talking about 500 people engaged here. So we're not talking about Utah Springs, about Camden here. It's still an important battle, lost, needed to be found. and with the interest in John Lawrence and the Lawrence family, very important.
There were